Welcome back to Fight Capital, where we step into the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rappaport. Today, I'm joined by Eduardo Balu Vargas, co-founder of Naciones MMA. Balu has an impressive background in MMA, including his time spent as the Latin American Vice President of Latin America for Combate Global and heading up their athlete development. He's also a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu under the tutelage of MMA legend Jake Shields. And he was a coach at the Skrap Pack Fight team, along with Gilbert Melendez and the Diaz brothers. Balu, thanks for joining me today. Where are you joining from?
I'm in San Diego, California. Beautiful, foggy, gray San Diego, California.
Yeah, we'll take warm though.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about your involvement with Naciones MMA and what led to you starting up the promotion.
It was actually created during the pandemic, believe it or not. I had walked away. I had walked away from my previous employer, which is Combate Americas, in the last show, 2019. I think my last day was somewhere around February. It was literally like a month before the pandemic hit, and I just resigned and was kind of like a little bit tired of MMA. I didn't really like what was going on and whatnot. And during the midst of the pandemic, well, there was not much a lot of people were doing other than just watching sports or old videos and whatnot. And as I was looking, I just didn't see there was a lot of there was only one, and it was an American-based company that was aimed towards Hispanics. I saw two other promotions that I didn't think were strong enough out there, and so in talking to my friend Hector, we had a long relationship with, working together in promotion, and he had to kind of help me with. Not kind of, he did help me when it came to the regulatory stuff and doing the events in Monterrey, Mexico. Reached out to him. We got together, went back and forth on some ideas. I talked to some other friends. I was just kind of like seeing if I could really do it. Right. It was something that it was unknowns to me, because at that point I was just matchmaking and running the events in Latin America. I took the promotion in Latin America basically blindfolded the first time I went. It was all from photo memory of me doing, being alongside Gilbert and Jake and Nate and whatnot when I got to go with them to the UFC with Daniel Roberts. I worked with the Black Zillions for a while too, so I got to see firsthand a lot of it, being behind the scenes, the contracts, all that stuff. And so everything I've learned has always been hands-on from the bottom up. And all I did was translate it into Spanish. That's all I did. And so doing that, talked to Hector. We got together. A couple months later, we were like, let's do it. All right, let's see what happens. And, it was self-funded promotion that we both did. And we both believe in the project. And it's something that we've been doing and working hard. We launched two events in March, I think was the first one. And then in June of 2021. Kind of like, because we decided kind of to pull the trigger towards the end of 2020. And so 2021, we're like, all right, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Certain areas are opening up. We don't have to have crowds, but we can still do the fights and we can still promote some of these guys. And we wanted to have a platform for these guys to be somewhere, right? It's like me and Melina Hector, we get nothing out of it, right? In regards to like giving these guys fights. We weren't their managers, we weren't anything, but we just like, let's keep the sport going, man. And so next thing you know, we launched it, and picked up, and we threw it around to some of the networks out there, and Estrella Media was the first one to give us an opportunity, and we were very, very lucky, and we were able to launch our real year, which was in 2022 with 10 events. So yeah, that's how it popped up.
Well, I mean, the first thing that took me back about the product that you guys are putting out was the quality of the fights. And I know that you've spent a lot of time scouting top level fighters in Latin America. And obviously that can be challenging, given like a very vast geographic area. How do you navigate the process of finding that talent that you're putting into Naciones in the cage?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been years of having relationships with quality coaches. I think there's a lot of coaches out there. I don't think there's a lot of good coaches out there. I can tell you there's a handful of coaches that I think are great, and I think there's 10 handfuls of coaches that I think are terrible. What I do think is I trust in a lot of these guys, because we each have like the same idea, which is we're trying to better the sport. We're trying to propel these athletes from Latin America to get opportunities, which is for me 2 times harder than the Americans have to. 2 times harder than the Canadians have to. Like they have to go through different ways of getting an opportunity to get into big platforms, right? It's not as easy. Now we're kind of seeing it more with the influence of Brandon Moreno and Alexa Grasso. I mean, we might see. I think we're going to see our 4th Mexican champion this upcoming week with Eden Aldana. But it's been a hard process for a lot of these guys to get opportunities. So that's the reason you need platforms. Now, for me to scout is I work with a lot of the amateur federations. I work and I kind of scout who the champions are, what happens with them afterwards. Are these guys really wanting to fight, or are they just doing it just for fun and giggles, right? Or they're just like, maybe I don't want to fight, maybe I do want to fight. So I kind of follow them around their first, second fights, and I'm a huge fan of MMA. I mean, I literally watch a lot of promotions that you probably have never even heard of. There's I talk to the guys that I work with. They don't even know some of the promotions I watch. And I'm just like, hey, do you know where this one is? Oh, where's it based? Oh, it's based in so and so in Venezuela. They're like, oh shit, I didn't even know that existed. So it's like I'm always looking for fight camps, fights, fighters, guys that send out, and then I kind of it's not only about fighting, it's also about social media nowadays, right? Where it's just like who sells themselves the best, who has following, who's not like who's just not a disaster or going to cause controversy or things like that. So there's a lot of goes into it, not just fighting, but that's kind of what I do. I mean, I'm just a fan, and I'm always looking. I'm always online looking for fighters and contacting coaches and fighters themselves. So that's kind of my way of being able to find these guys.
Well, I think you got a pretty unique place in the industry. One, having trained with one of the obvious, arguably one of the top teams of the time, with Gilbert and Jake and the Diaz brothers, but also, all of you've done on the regional scene working with these athletes. I know you have a little bit more stake for the athletes. Can you talk about some of the ways that you're helping protect them and guide them along through the process?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm not a manager, but I don't want them to get screwed, right? It's like a lot of these guys, it's hard to convince. It's hard to kind of let them know what's been out there. So I kind of use the examples of a lot of guys that I've been working with in the past, or where I've learned from, where it's like, listen, it's sometimes it sounds cliche, but sometimes it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? It's like you just got to take your time, and there's ways of grooming it. There's ways of you kind of taking maybe the boxing approach. There's ways of you maybe being a little smarter, of not looking for the money right away, but it's going to happen. It's like there's different ways, because the bad part about this sport, unlike any other sport, right? It's like in the NFL and the NBA, you lose and you play another day and your salary is still here. You lose in MMA, you take 10 steps back and you just lost your win bonus. Or you just, you lost it to another guy that's going to take that spot of like, he has a 5-0 record now. Not you. You have a 6-0 record, 6-1 record. Now that guy jumps ahead of you because you lost. So it's weird, man. It's a very brutal sport, and we try to take these guys and match them. I try to help and match them with managers, or suggest to them managers that I think are good for them. Right? Like I said, I have a handful of guys that I respect and I appreciate how they work. There's other guys that I'm just like, stay away from that guy. He's terrible. I mean, and that's just my own opinion, but I'm very honest. And a lot of these guys know I'm very honest and I'm very direct. So, and I've worked hard for this and for being this confident. I've worked for years in this. And so that's why, like, I say it with so much praise when I'm just like, I don't think this guy's good for you. I think you should go here. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're adults and they'll figure it out themselves. But the idea is to try to guide them so that they can have a longer career, not just 2 fights and you're done. And then what? You're back to the regional scene, man. You just worked 10 years of your life to get onto the big stage because you tried pushing it so fast. You lose 2 fights and you only made like 14 grand, and now you're back in the regional scene, and it's like, now what? So, I mean, it's a hard sport. It's a very, very hard sport. Very small percentage of the guys make real money to where they're actually, doing really, really well and don't have to have a second job. But again, they're not also normal people. It's like, most people that are in this sport. When I was a coach, I used to say, there's something wrong with you, or else you'd be at a treadmill at 24-hour fitness. But instead, you're here with me. So, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes back to your authenticity, right? That's a theme that comes up a lot for me when I'm talking about this, is that people recognize people who are doing real work and are providing real value, and being able to be honest with people is probably an enduring quality within the space, because it's a pretty small community, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know you guys. You mentioned you bootstrapped this thing from the beginning, and you're obviously operating in a more of a frugal space compared to some of the other organizations. Which some of them are just kind of like grandiose, if you ask me, and more on the production shine versus the quality of the content. I mean, how do you think that Naciones is having more of a focus on developing fighters, or having that focus on developing fighters is setting it apart from other promotions in Latin America?
Uh, I mean, they each have their own agendas. I think so. One thing about it, the other promotions that exist, which are like UWC, Lux, Budo, and am I missing one? UWC, Budo. I think that's it. It's like three. I think that three that compete with us in Mexico is they're all under the UFC Fight Pass umbrella, right? It's like they all want to be a stepping stone into the UFC. With us is we're not a stepping stone. We're a development, and until we get to that point where we can become a competitive league where they don't have to leave, it's like I have no intentions of being a feeder league to them, right? It's like there's the PFL, there's Bellator, there's ONE FC, there's Ryzen, there's tons of other opportunities for these guys to know, and that's something that we tell them. It's like, hey, listen, we'll help you, we'll push you. I have contact with a lot of these other promotions. We're going to send your name to this. Now, if you're interested, right, we'll help you out on that end. And that's kind of what we do. We're kind of always pushing our fighters to see, until we're able to keep them, that there's other places just besides the UFC. Obviously, the UFC is great because your cousin that doesn't fight thinks you're hot, hot stuff when you're in the UFC, because they don't know ONE FC, Pride, or PFL or Bellator. The other ones exist. They just don't. They're not. That's what a lot of fans, like casual fans, come in, right? They don't know. So it's like, oh, why aren't you in the UFC? You're like, man, I'm making 3 times the amount of money over here. Why would I go to the UFC? And that's something I actually learned from being alongside Gilbert, right? When Gilbert was at Strikeforce, people would be like, oh, you fight for Strikeforce. Is that like the UFC? And he was like, and I'm like, dude, he's making way more money, and he's getting like way more eyes, and he's getting more attention. And it's those are the things that I learned that I translate over to I bring over to the guys where I'm just like, there's other opportunities for you to grow. There's other opportunities for you to stand out, and that's what we're trying to do. Is not only be like there's only one way. There's multiple ways for you to get.
Yeah, well, and you guys are doing it in a way that no one else is too, right? With those streaming partnerships with DAZN and Twitch, and getting into DAZN's new DAZN MMA's YouTube as well. And this strikes me as all ways to ensure that the audience is growing along with you. But can you provide some of the insight into those current partnerships and the platforms that you're using for streaming the events?
Yeah, so the Twitch thing actually came about because I was watching. I'm always looking, like I said, I'm always looking just for like fighters the same way. We're always looking for other ways for us to showcase our events. In Latin America, a lot of that stuff is like a lot of people don't want to pay. Socioeconomically, it just doesn't make sense for a lot of people to have 5 apps or 6 apps, and they're not going to go into one app just to watch us because we're still relatively new. Although we try to encourage it, right? It's like we want our platform to be accessible and everybody can see it. And what better way than Twitch? A girl that works with me, Marina, is a gamer on Twitch, and so I started talking to her, and I was curious because she puts up videos and she plays, and I was just asking questions. And this took me about like 2 weeks, where I think I watched something about a soccer player, PK or something like that is his name. I'm the only Mexican that doesn't watch soccer. So it's like he did this thing called the some Kings League. The Kings League, I think it's called. It's a soccer league, and they were doing it on Twitch, and these guys, and it was just like boom, it was like just being hit by viewers, right? And a lot of people weren't even fans; they're just new content. And so as I started talking to Marina about it, she started educating me on Twitch because I'm 42 years old and I'm good on my iPhone, but that's all I know how to do. Instagram is as far as I go. And with her explaining to me what Twitch was, I jumped on LinkedIn, started looking up the people on Twitch. Lo and behold, thank God the guy from Twitch Latin America is a MMA fan. We started talking, we started brainstorming. Within 2 weeks, we came to an agreement, which was awesome because I wasn't expecting it. And so it was awesome because we've been able to reach an entire new audience. That helped us get YouTube. That helped us to get DAZN, who we work with, but they're not very popular in Latin America. We were able to convince DAZN that this is what's happening. This is what we're doing with free audience. It's like, you guys aren't very strong in Latin America, so why don't we use your YouTube channel on the zone? We can still work with, we'll still be with you guys, but maybe we have access that's a little bit more, it's easier for people to find. And thanks to the idea of Twitch, they were able to jump on board, and they were like, yeah, let's try it, and we were able to launch the DAZN MMA YouTube. So now it's accessible to everyone all over the world, but primarily the Latin American audience. So that's what we're very excited about, and our numbers have been great. Twitch is excited, we're excited, and so it's a new way, right? It's not your typical Univision, Telemundo, which they're all great, but it's like now you can watch it on Twitch, something that's popular in a new generation. So it's been very well for us. It's been doing good.
No, I think it's game changing. I mean, that to have all of those platforms collaborating on putting out a high quality product speaks to some more forward thinking people across the board. So I love seeing stuff like that, and it's an evolution for 100% for the sport, for content streaming, and I think for Naciones, which is amazing to see. I know you guys have another event coming up in Monterrey. You got Argentina. Is there anything else that you all want to push out there today and kind of put on everyone else's in everyone else's calendars?
Yeah. You know what? June 30th, we have a great, amazing event. Right now, we got some studs on there that have been with us since the beginning, and these guys are now co-main eventing, they're main eventing, and they've just been putting on amazing fights. The crowd is loving them, and that's something that we want to do all the time. Is every time we go to these countries and these cities, is we want to showcase the local talent, right? It's like we're entering Argentina for the first time, which I'm super excited about. I did a scouting trip about almost 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say. I ran to a lot of gyms. I primarily visited Buenos Aires, but Cordoba is where we're going to do our event September 9th. That's where a lot of the studs came out of. Marcelo Rojo, Emilio Sordi. Emilio Sordi is actually one of the guys that'll be commentating our event. So we're always showcasing local talent, right? We always want to make it about them and the surrounding countries around them, not just us bringing Mexicans everywhere and having them fight Mexico versus this versus that. No, it's the idea of Naciones. Obviously, is representing the nations and pushing this as much as we can. So, tune in June 30th for our event in Monterrey. I think people are going to be super excited about it. And then in Argentina as well, September 9th. August, we're going to be announcing we're changing locations. We were originally going to go to Ecuador due to some of the political turbulence that's been going on there. We had to change the location, so we should have something, and that's part of it, man. It's like you have it in the calendar, and something like this happens, and it's just better to avoid it, especially us being from outside. So we should be announcing something for early August in the next couple of weeks or so. But yeah, we'll be seeing the Escarga brothers and some of the other local talent that we've been growing with Naciones, and going from there.
Yeah, I love that. The fight I went to in Monterrey was off the chain. I didn't expect as much from the crowd as they were giving. So it was just cool to be engulfed in that and seeing it happen real and live, which, was really blessed to be there.
What's funny is that guy's not even, that kid wasn't even, for me, it was actually a really surreal moment. When Fabricio won, because our objective has always been to create names and create these fighters. And when he won, and watching everyone in the place just like yelling for him was really like it was good. It felt good because he's not from there. Like, he is not from there. He's from Ensenada, Mexico. And so to see the crowd just going nuts, and you saw the whole rowdy crowd, right? It's like sometimes 2,000 Mexicans sound like 12,000 or 20,000. So it's but it was loud, and so I'm glad you got to experience it, and hopefully we'll have you back again for anyone.
No, likewise. And so tell everyone how they can find Naciones. What are the best ways to engage with the brand, and what are the best ways they can engage with you?
Yeah, follow us on on Instagram at nacionesmma.com. We're on Twitch. Oh, basically all our handles are all at nacionesmma.com. At nacionesmma. Sorry, not .com. And for me, it's at Balu Vargas. If you have any guys that want to fight, we're not against bringing in Americans. We've had numerous Americans fight with us in the last year and a half, so we're all for it. If you guys want to reach out to us, and I'll put you in contact with our matchmaker, or I could help. But yeah, tune into us on Twitch. You can follow us at DAZN watch our event June 30th on the DAZN app as well. DAZN page on YouTube, DAZN MMA on YouTube. So we'll look forward and continue to grow.
Hey man, thank you so much for doing this again. Really appreciate it, and just such a fan of what you guys are doing. Hector and everyone on the team there is just crushing it. Looking forward to doing one of these again after blow out Monterrey and whatever's on the map after Ecuador now, and then Argentina. Looking forward to them all.
For sure, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day.